Beyond thrilled to be here at AVO's annual partner conclave, panel discussion, and a small trivia, which is not more a trivia anymore. It's our first, right? So, I'll introduce myself very quickly. I'm Manish. I'm head of product at AVO Automation. Primarily responsible for the product strategy and the roadmap for AVO. I'm here also the moderator for today's discussion, along with our esteemed panelists. And our topic for the day is future of software testing unveiled. It is important, it's crucial because this platform also lets us enable to explore and understand the evolving landscape of technology and software testing. In the era of this rapid changes, it's imperative to anticipate and adapt to these emerging trends, right? Methodologies that is coming up and again, new principles on how product developments have been done, and the strategies how we should be shaping ourselves so that we prep for the future is what would be the main essence, and we would be trying to pick our panelists' brains on those areas. And let me take an opportunity to quickly introduce our panelists. Ms. Mallika Fernandes, who is the managing director at Accenture. She's a very seasoned IT leader with over 24 years of experience in deep expertise in IT. Of course, as part of Accenture's cloud-first group, she's leading innovation in quality engineering, automation, and many other unique assets. So please, big round of applause for Mallika. Thank you. My next inline guest is Mr. Ramesh Mahadevan. He has more than 30 years of experience in information technology and around 22 years in the digital assurance and quality engineering space. He's serving as a senior director for India Tech CBU at Expleo Group. Thank you, Ramesh. Please, big round of applause for Ramesh. And lastly, I would like to introduce Saksham as one of our panelists again today. He holds 23 years of experience in quality software engineering, and he's also been exposed to a lot of different hats and verticals that he has sort of owned and delivered projects in different lines. He currently is in NewVision, is currently serving as a practice head for digital assurance and RPA projects. Yeah. Thank you for gracing us for your presence, and we are super elated to have you on board. So without wasting further time, I would like to really jump on to question number one of my panel first discussion, and I'll kick off with you, Mallika. Right? We have been hearing a lot about transformations and in and around the AI/ML space, right? In today's world, AI/ML has been sort of used in different flavors and facets of software engineering and also beyond software engineering, right? About analyzing data, making personalizations of reports, robotics, and a lot more area. But I would really want to understand from your thought that from a testing landscape perspective, what do you think AI/ML is contributing and how they're doing it? And point number two to that, my question is the implications of GenAI, because that's another buzzword these days. How is going to impact again in the testing space?
So firstly, thank you, Manish, for having me here. I think conducting an event of this sort, bringing our partners together, so kudos to you, being a new kid on the block in terms of automation and driving this kind of an event, I think itself is a big leap for you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be a learning experience listening to my friends here, whom I meet at all the conferences. So it's good to bring us back together. Going to your question on AI/ML, I think we just go to the slide you just presented, and all the information is already there, so I don't have to say much. But the way I look at AI/ML within Accenture is to bring it into your core automation strategy. So all levels of automation that you do, and the way we are looking at it is we divide it into three parts. The first is your foundational automation, where you bring in concepts like self-healing, which really help you in building that core foundation automation. There are two other categories that are often ignored. The second is discovery automation, where you learn from patterns which come from your right and your left. So if you're looking at, say, test cases, you look at optimization as a lever. If you're looking at production, you look at log analytics and identifying patterns from there as a lever. And today, machine learning can do all of that.
Yeah.
And the third lever really is decision automation, the way we're looking at it, because insights and bringing those insights to form intelligent decisions at the fingertips of the testers is very core and important. So we are looking at it in three ways. But beyond, I think really beyond AI ML, which has been around for a decade now, no talk about AI is complete without GenAI. So that's the buzz wherever you go today.
Yeah.
So GenAI is being adopted, and I think it's a very definitive moment for us. GenAI is helping especially the testing community because we generate a lot of stuff, whether it's test cases or defects or scenarios, right? So because we generate a huge amount of data, GenAI is the true lever, I think, which is going to give a lot of efficiency and value to our clients and to the testing community.
Great, great. I think you summed it very well. And as you saw, right, we were also sort of talking about AVO's roadmap. We pretty much, I think then we are on a safe track that we are going in the right direction. Just as an extension again, Mallika, on the same Gen AI, what apart from Gen AI you think are the other some future trends that you sort of foresee can be a buzzword, and not just the buzzword, I would say, but something coming into reality very soon that you are thinking these are around the corners?
So one thing I think will continue into 2024 is cloud.
Right.
Cloud and cloud computing will continue to be the buzzword even in 24 because modernization is the theme going forward, right? So a lot of our clients are looking forward to adopting the cloud, and we've only just in the last 2 or 3 years done the migration bit. But really harnessing the power of the cloud to continue your journey into the cloud, I think that is going to be 2024. That's one of the key areas. But I also know that there are PCs going to be powered with AI, right? So GenAI is not only for software, GenAI for hardware, and Intel is coming out with their GenAI-enabled PC with into chips. So I think chip is also, and GenAI in PCs is maybe the next big thing that is, we're all going to have laptops with GenAI.
GenAI.
Yeah.
Correct. I couldn't agree more. And I don't think these are now any day just aspirational developments or technologies. These are pretty much there right now. As you said, we are living, breathing things, right? So absolutely, and couldn't agree more. But while these emerging technologies are there, I think there are certain North Star metrics or let's say the principles that keeps the fencings around these R&Ds, you say, or practices, you say, right? And this becomes a robust formation of the entire foundation for any enterprises. And so my question to you, Saksham, while all these things are happening, right, these new methodologies or cutting edge technologies, R&Ds, and people aspiring to learn those new things, what traditional principles of testing you anticipate would still remain pertinent and won't go just like off the shelf, it would remain to be relevant. So I just wanted to understand your thoughts on that.
Sure. With your permission, I'll start with a confession.
Sure.
Right? Whatever I thought I will say on this dash today has already been said.
Sure.
Right? So everything that I know about future of testing, I think the great sessions before me have covered. I have exhausted all my notes. That's where I don't have a paper in hand. Okay, so that's confession. I'm just going to try and see if I can think on the feet, right? Very interesting question, because the topic is future of testing, but what we're trying to look at is, okay, while everything is going to change and looks like everything is changing, what are the things that are not going to change? And to me, the fundamentals of testing, the core essence of testing is not going anywhere. Everything that we have learned in last 3 decades, everything that we realize is of importance is not going anywhere. Yes, today quality is responsibility of everyone, but we are still the custodian of quality. We are still the gatekeeper. No one is taking that off from us. Number one. Number two, it is still important that tester today is representative of the end user of the application in the engineering life cycle, right? Now, all of this that is going around, whether it's AI, ML, cloud, metaverse, and all that stuff, is all about how we do that role. Is not changing what we do in that role. The what remains the same, right? It is still of the paramount importance for a tester to understand the application, business process, domain, and the end user behavior very well. Otherwise, they are not going to do that one thing they are getting paid for.
Correct.
And that is to find meaningful defects early in a life cycle.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, no matter what comes in next, this is not changing. A definition of good tester is still the same. The one who knows where to find defect, how to find them early on.
Early on.
And that stays same. So, short answer to you, just to summarize, I think all the fundamentals that I've learned growing up are still intact. In fact, they are more pertinent now than ever before, barring one. And that was the notion of independence of testing. When I took up this profession 23 years back, we were gung-ho about how testing has to be independent. I think that notion is being challenged now. That notion have to be traded off because that's not how DevOps work, right? But barring that, everything else is even more important. And why is it important question to me, Manish? Because I think, especially for the community, which is going to come here, I think, in the second half of the day,
Right.
it is very important for them to understand that they cannot be good at automation testing unless they are good at testing itself.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's how I'll see it. Thanks.
Very, very valid point, Saksham. I think the transformation cannot be diminished on the core fundamentals, right? That remains intact. And Ramesh, you and I have spoken about this, I think, over the teams day before yesterday. And I know you also have some thoughts and opinion on this question. So, in terms of, enterprise practices, let me just rephrase this. What do you think would be the still commonly held practices that you think would remain relevant, right?
Whatever is happening in the testing industry will stay relevant. I mean, I'm not going to change anything what Saksham said or what we are doing today. The fact is where we have to, look at, basic of quality is meeting the requirements fit for use, right? The fit for use aspect has now changed. So we'll have to look at not from an MVP perspective, but MLP perspective, which is not minimum viable product, but minimum lovable product, which is more from a customer-centric perspective. And hence, what we're looking at is from not only functional testing, automation testing, performance testing, security testing, but get the chaos engineering and SRE to put it together, right? So that we have a holistic solution from a testing perspective and we keep the customer first. I think that's where I see that the fundamentals remain the same and they never change. We've looked at how we did in waterfall, traditional waterfall. Now we see what's happening in agile. So many different agile methods are there, but still fundamentals remains the same, and we will stick to the fundamentals.
Right. Certainly, Ramesh, I think, that remains still the guiding force, right? And I really liked this terminology that you used instead of minimum viable product. I'm a product guy. I use these terms. I'm going to definitely steal that, right? So moving on, I think we just spoke about the future, still what is relevant and what will still remain relevant for upcoming days and months and years. Let's shift our focus to the current landscape of the product development, right? Mallika alluded about cloud technology, so we're going to talk a little bit on that. Basically some of it's a very common aspiration these days, right? Either they have already started their journey towards cloud, or somebody has told them that they have to be there. Or, many wise men have already thought that, the decision should have been taken and they have already taken and they are on that journey to become the cloud first, right? Whether it's in terms of architecture or their solutions or products and all of that. So on that note, Mallika, what do you think, how has user consumption evolved, in response to these SaaS products, package solutions, whatever, nuances are there in the market? That's my first question. And then, of course, what transformations are occurring in this overall approach, in this space, is where I would like to know your thoughts.
I think very relevant question. So if I look at moving on a J2C, a cloud journey, there are three aspects. The first one is the migration, which most folks have already done the catch-up game. So that's already in the past. You then have modernization, and these days a lot of applications are completely being built with cloud native. I was recently talking to a bank in North America, and they are born in the cloud. So completely digital, completely using cloud native. So when you think of such technologies, and also about mark technologies, right, where you have a lot of microservices, where you have headless architectures being used, where you have containers being used, the crux really is modernization. The key to modernization really is adopting SaaS applications. It makes it that much easier rather than having to build your whole application grounds up.
Correct.
And the bank that I was referring to, that's what they did. Wherever it was possible, they used SaaS apps, they used packaged apps. And today you have a lot of excellent products in the market that help you to reach there faster. And many of them here are your partners as well, right? But how do you, I'm looking at it more from how do you test such architectures? How do you test a packaged app, or how do you really, so there were a lot of R's used here from the morning, reinvent, redesign, rethink. I'll add one more there, which is reimagine. So I think to solve for this, you need to reimagine your cloud quality engineering strategies.
Right.
And I think that is key, which involves multiple elements, right? So it involves your functional testing, which of course is done very well by several tools of choice. Then you have to also focus on the performance and the resilience aspect. So how reliable are your applications? So that's a second concept where you look at, testing for performant and reliable applications.
Right.
Do they really serve that uptime in production? And finally, you look at, also testing the digital core, which makes up looking at the data aspects of it, the security aspects of it. So putting all these three together, I think that is how, we need to reimagine quality engineering. Think of strategies for testing mark architectures, strategies for, say, testing and automating containers, serverless architectures, and all of that, which is not very standard, but that's where, we need to, be one step ahead.
Correct. No, very, very valid, Mallika. I think you touched upon some of those key pulses, right? Because these are the things where very much I have seen, at least in the organization that I have worked in, who aspire to go into that journey, that they are very much heavily focused from a development per se mindset, and then they invest everything on that line. But when it comes about, okay, everything is built now, how to go about testing those complex architecture, or firstly to getting familiarity with those platforms, I think they can become clueless, and then they start using consultancy, and then even when we were embarking our journey on the Oracle, we never knew a lot of solutions are out of the box by these cloud providers on the observability front, on the analytics front, and you don't have to build, like you said, ground zero everything. You can leverage a lot of these things. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and on that note, right, Saksham, we spoke about this also briefly yesterday when we were talking about this topic in general, but there are certain insights which are very, very helpful from a DevOps practices perspective, right? And that I definitely believe personally, because it has helped us and my product team in understanding where to focus on. So according to you, question to you, Saksham, that these insights from the DevOps practices, how do you think can be learned, number one, and those understandings of the future trends you pick up that can be actually the buzzwords or the future trends from a QA landscape perspective?
Sure. And just like we discussed yesterday, right? I think first question that we should ask ourselves is DevOps the right yardstick for us?
Yeah.
Why think of DevOps at all, right? I think that's because if the world is going to digital transformation, DevOps got to be its vehicle to be there, right? DevOps in various forms. There are different debate that can happen on what DevOps is and whether there is one DevOps or there is interpretation of it. But DevOps is going to be the reality for tomorrow if digital has to happen. And if that is the case, then everything we do from a QA side or otherwise also has to be seen whether it is relevant for DevOps, right. It is aligned to DevOps. Right? Even the product backlog that you showed us, right? Whatever you have, what are you going to cover? The good question to ask is, where does it fit into the DevOps ecosystem, right? For me, when I look at the QA in DevOps, look at what is going on currently, what DevOps is all about, it also tells me what is going to come in QA next, right? That's a good indication. And I'll probably take a cue from what Mallika said as an answer to her first question. For me, a simple read of DevOps manifesto, right? And I'm sure most of us have read it. There are three keywords that will appear again and again. One, continuous. Second, collaboration. And third, they're calling it about feedback loops, continuous feedback loops. For now, I would like to bracket them as cognitive, right? And this is also the word that was used in first session. So for me, continuous, collaborative, and cognitive. These are the three themes that DevOps is asking us to mold into.
Right.
Now the question is, what does it mean from QA side? For me, for continuous testing to happen, barring everything else, and Adik talks about how we can have 90% automation and then it becomes easier for CI/CD pipeline and everything, absolutely right. But for me, unless we have a test environment and test data solutions completely automated and aligned to our overall solution,
Correct.
that continuous testing would never happen. So for me, that is what we need to. And as an industry, I think we're warming towards it. We are not there yet. Thanks to GDPR and all, we are at least taking test data a bit more seriously now.
Yes.
Right? But environment, I think we still have, as an industry, I'm saying, there are of course exceptions, but there's still a long way to go before we adopt that completely.
Correct.
So that's continuous for me. The second is collaboration. And this is where, like Mallika beautifully summarized it, shift left, shift right. That's what is expected out of QA.
Correct.
I need to understand technology better so that I can test early, but I also need to understand the usage pattern better, the ops side of it better, the business side of better to shift right. There's actually a notion of testing in production monitoring now, right? Again, shift left, I think we're doing a great job. At least we're aware, we're sensitized. Shift right is something I think is going to come our way, big way now, right? The last is cognitive. And I think enough is said already about it today. But I would say the observability in testing, of testing, would be driven mostly by how maturely we implement AI into these practices.
These practices,
And that's my take on it, Manish.
Thank you. Thanks, Saksham. I think these are some profound words. And, you know, Ramesh, I'm coming to you, of course, and we talked about cloud, we've spoken about DevOps. A large and lot are spoken about these LLM models, large models, right, these days, patents around these areas. But I still see that there is a pocket that still does not talk about the testing community, right? How to test these large complex systems. What are your thoughts on that? And I think this would be something very benefit for the entire community also to listen about this.
See, I want to touch upon two aspects when it actually comes to AI, ML and the large language models. We are simply going with whatever the models are providing with the results. We simply go ahead with that model saying that is right. And of course, we depend on our SMEs to say whether it's generated right or not. But is there any way by which I can actually check with models generated is correct, right? And that is where, you know, there are a lot of things like SHAP and Line, and little getting in deeper, we have Blue and Meteor. Those are some of the things. I'm not sure if people have actually gone into it, but it will give a view of how you could actually test, you know, the large language models as well as, you know, the machine learning. The other positive is you do have, assume that you have transformer like Llama 2, right? You could use OpenAI to also check or verify whether the models have been generating correctly or not. So those are some of the inputs, you know, that I thought I can share with this quorum.
Sure. Thanks, Ramesh. I think, so we've spoken about the landscape, the future, the practices. I think now let's shift our focus to the final segment of our panel discussion. We'll try to understand now, you know, you've been out there in the market, and this will help, you know, platform providers like us also. Some of the key aspects I really wanted to understand from your lens. So question to you, Mallika, on the final thoughts, basically that, you know, you're an enterprise side, of course, a buyer also, right? So, you know, when you have to say, for example, procure a tool, you know, like us and, you know, likes of similar platforms, what features or, you know, those criterias you see that sort of fits into that bucket that, yeah, this tool looks like an enterprise grade solution that I should definitely endorse or talk about and replicate within my other processes?
Okay, so I think the first thing there is for organizations themselves to build a enterprise test automation strategy. I think in a lot of organizations that itself is missing. So there is a lot of siloed decision making, and the choice of the tool is not completely depend on the enterprise tech landscape.
Correct.
So what do we look for in a tool, maybe like Evo, is firstly the coverage of the tech landscape. Are all the stacks that are in the enterprise getting automated by the tool of choice?
Okay.
Right? So that's definitely the top priority, because today there is everywhere from web to mainframes, legacy in the
Correct.
mix. So do you have a tool that supports all your technology? The second, I would say, is really the scalability aspect of the tool and the reliability aspect of the tool.
Right.
So if you want to scale it quickly, and everybody today wants to run fast, is that possible through your tool of choice?
Correct.
And lastly, I would say is the cost, not really the cost of the tool, but really the cost of maintenance of what you're building using the tool. So if it is a framework, if it is codeless, or if it is scripts,
Right.
how easy it is to maintain in the long run. Because
run.
today, what I've seen from clients, the automation is not a problem. The investment for automation is not a problem at all, but it's about how good, a lot of the automation you build is flaky.
Right.
There's a lot of failures. So it's how good the maintenance really is, because the cost of what you spend on automation
Right.
is really a one time for building, but multiple years for
Maintaining.
maintenance.
Correct.
So I think that, and then maybe one last point would also be the user, the ease of use,
Right.
which the user experience is also completely
Sure.
important. So how easy it is to use, what kind of features do you have?
Right.
And I just want to add one point that, when you're doing this AFL, right? So you've given the tool to users,
Correct.
which I think in a way, while you're marketing it as it's good for people to learn, but I think that's a very good strategy, because you're
Correct.
getting your tool tested
Yes.
free of cost.
Absolutely.
by by the community.
Actual
So
users.
it's like you're having a large community, different flavors of demography of
Correct.
people really giving you the feedback
Yes.
for your tool. So I think that's a great way of reaching out
Thank
and
you.
also getting your tool tested.
Thank you. Well, that was the secret definitely behind that program as well. Now moving on to Ramesh, on you this part. If I have to wear, let's say, a developer's lens here, if you had to sort of, put your fingers on a couple of innovations that businesses would capitalize on the AI ML technique space to stay relevant, what would be those you think that, it's relevant for most of the enterprises, but yeah.
See, let me take this example of Copilot, right? Where we see that the development team have started using Copilot.
Correct.
What would it stay relevant for testing? The answer to me is yes. I'm not sure how many of my friends here have got performance testing as the background. I've never seen an automation of performance testing,
Yeah.
right? We talk about automation, that's functional automation, but that's not performance automation. And that's where what we've observed is that using, Copilot, you can have the performance scripts created using Gatlings, that's using methods. That's something that we have observed,
Right.
that we could embrace. That's the first one. Second is with respect to security testing. Once again, we can see that the threat detection, not from a code perspective,
Right.
but also from a HLD and a LLD perspective, which is from an even architecture stage, right? We heard Mahesh talking about that. Problems with the architecture.
Yes.
That's where we can actually embrace
Right.
on the Copilot. Right? These are only couple of scenarios. There are other scenarios where we feel that the Copilot can certainly change the way that what we are doing today.
Right.
Right? But last but not least one, what I want to conclude, right? 1 year back, if you asked me what's the opposite of win, I would have actually said lose. But I've changed, right? In 1 year, I'm
Absolutely.
saying that it's learn. And the fifth R, which what I wanted to add, is that reinforcement, right? As you learn, you reinforce. And that's where we see that the change in the technologies, we have to embrace it. We'll have to see how it will be applicable for software testing, apply the logic and how it will work, and then take it forward. You can't blindly jump into it. You will have to do quite a lot of due diligence and then take it forward. That's my view.
And I'm sure you're talking about, by the way, the Git Copilot, right?
It's a Git Copilot and not the Microsoft
Yes.
Copilot.
Thanks, Ramesh. And lastly, Saksham, now, what I wanted to understand your thoughts are on the tool preparedness from the future standpoint, right? Everything has to be commercially viable as well, right? But again, you need to have the future proofing done. So I wanted to understand from you, what are those characteristics within a platform or a tool should definitely sort of envisage while strategizing, being relevant commercially, at the same time be enterprise's first choice, right? Some point definitely Mallika alluded towards it, but I really wanted to understand your thoughts also on it.
Sure. So you're basically getting your product backlog created by us. Okay. I think I agree with all the points that have been said by both of them, right? Absolutely bang on. I'll probably take a slightly provocative tone here, right? In my own personal view and experience, I don't think the giant monolith single tool or single platform is how the future of tooling looks like. I don't see that. I think, and again, taking the support from what I've learned from DevOps brings in the democratization of tools. Different teams, different purpose, different objective, different tools, right? Pick up a tool that does your thing best. That's what DevOps do. And that is why we look at very complex hybrid tooling ecosystems. For me, the future of test automation tool is a tool that accepts that ecosystem well. It's not the tool that does everything. It's a tool that does its own job perfectly well and seamlessly integrated with lot many others.
Right.
And that's what I was happy to see that you're trying to tick that box. Right? I think that's going to be very crucial. Right. The second is, again, in my view, I don't think commercial tools should really compete with open source tools anymore. Right. I don't think they can afford it. Open source tools are going to here to stay.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not. And they are ruling it right now. They're killing it right now. I think if I had a choice, I would have actually shaken hands with that world. Embrace them. Okay. For example, what is the most largest rapidly growing community today? It's Python. In terms of the number of users, number of reusable libraries. Okay. How many commercial tools from automation today are using Python as their scripting language?
Very nice.
Very nice. And I think this is where, if you can join these two worlds, it can become your strength. Third thing is community, and Mallika and Rami both spoke about it. I think it has to be the greatest asset. And this is where I'm 10 out of 10 to Evo. In a short span of time, I thought community was your first focus area. Right. In this first 6 months itself, typically the tools and technology partners that I work with, this comes as an afterthought. Yeah. But you started from there. Correct. That's where I saw the difference. But I would say, let us grow and expand it beyond. You have given them tool, you have given them training. But now they're going to build beautiful assets through it, reusable libraries. Why not bring them to one place, like a marketplace that we spoke about, and then Evo becomes even more stronger because of the community contribution. Yes. Yeah. And it goes beyond what the roadmap that Adik has for us. Right? The third part and the last part, I would say, let us relook at the licensing models as well. I don't think we have done a great job as an industry, barring few exceptions, to adopt to the new way of licensing. Licensing, yeah. We're all using hyperscalers here, paying for what we use, and yet we are talking about the traditional licensing model. I think if it goes a bit more subscription-based, a bit more usage-based, you will find more adoption. Correct. And that's my thoughts on this one.
It's certainly, these insights are not just valuable for platforms like us, but I think it holds a larger significance for entire community. And to your point that you were mentioning, Saksham, this is exactly what I was talking to Gartner last week. They said that you don't have to compete with these open source. Just make friends with them, build things on top of it, handshake with them, and that's how you can actually jointly do some innovative things. So that was the thought. So I would like to really thank you. I know we're a little over time. But we've come to the end of this panel discussion. I stand here with a heart full of gratitude and appreciation Thank you for making time out of your busy schedules and being part of our panelist discussions. And of course, the insights that you had shared, I think these are not just for AVO, but I think for the wider community. So thank you so much again.